Hi guys! Today I'm going to be talking about the classics that I want to read in 2017. I did a similar video last year for the Classics Challenge, which was run by Stacey from the Pretty Books, and this year she has decided not to carry on with that. So whilst I'm not formally doing a Classics Challenge, I still want to read as many classics as I can this year because I enjoyed it so much last year. I read between 20 and 25 books for the Classics Challenge last year, which exceeded all my expectations, and I really got into reading classics. I really enjoyed reading them. I've loved every second of trying out new things and reading lots of different things. So I've chosen quite a few books that I would like to read this year. I'm not saying that I'm going to read them all, it's not an extensive list. I'm going to add things in and swap things out as the year goes along, but I really enjoyed watching back the video I did last year and just seeing how many of those books I did read. So I'm just going to get into it because there's quite a lot. So I'm going to start by showing you some of the Penguin English Library editions that I want to read. I absolutely love these editions. I've been collecting them, as you might have seen in the background of my videos in the past few months or so. It's slowly been getting higher and higher, and I don't think I'm going to be able to fit them all on there for too long because it's just going to collapse. I just think that they're brilliant. So the first one I want to read is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I read Cranford last year. I liked it, but it's a bit of a weird book because it wasn't really meant to be written as a novel. It was written in installments, so not a lot really goes on in it. But North and South is a full novel. It was intended as a novel, and it is about a woman called Margaret Hale who is forced to move from the countryside to an industrial town in Victorian times and her relationship with a man there. I love how Elizabeth Gaskell tackles the differences between the countryside and the industrial towns that grew so much bigger in the Victorian era, and I just wanted to read a lot more Elizabeth Gaskell in 2017, so I definitely want to read this one. This is one that I definitely want to read. Then I have Evelina by Frances Burney, which is an epistolary novel, so it's told in letter form, which I think would be really interesting, and this greatly inspired Jane Austen, and I read Northanger Abbey earlier in the year last year and I really enjoyed that, and it was inspired partly by Evelina and books that are written around that time period, so I thought it was just one I have to read, and I think it's going to be really good because I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this one, and I think that's quite sad because people have forgotten Frances Burney, and I'd like to rectify that and read some of her books. The next two books are by Thomas Hardy, who I read for the first time last year. I read Tess the D'Urbervilles and Under the Greenwood Tree. I loved both of them, so of course I want to read more Thomas Hardy this year. And I have Far from the Madding Crowd, which is one of the lighter ones, and there's also a film version of this which I really want to watch, so I want to read the book first. Far from the Madding Crowd is about Bathsheba Everdeen. I have a guinea pig called Bathsheba. Fun fact there for you. And she owns a farm and she has various suitors, and I read a little extract of this because I'm doing A-level English literature and we do unseen prose, so this was one of the extracts we studied. I really enjoyed that and I just can't wait to read the rest of it. And then the other Thomas Hardy I would like to read this year is Two on a Tower, and I don't know a lot about this one. It is a romance again, but I think it could be more star-crossed lovers type romance, and this isn't one of his best known ones. It's not Tess the D'Urbervilles or Far from the Madding Crowd or Jude the Obscure, so I'm looking forward to reading it because I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, so I think sometimes that's nice to read something that you don't know a lot about. You don't have any other opinions kind of affecting the way you think about a book, so I think this one will be good. It's Thomas Hardy, so I'm hoping that I'll really enjoy it. I also want to dip into E.M. Forster this year, so I would like to read A Room with a View. This is about a woman called Lucy, great name choice there, E.M. Forster, and she goes to Italy. She has various suitors and I think it sounds good. I don't know a lot about E.M. Forster's writing style or anything like that, so I'm interested to see how it reads. On the back it says that it deals with radical thinking, women's suffrage and the constrictions of English social rules, so I think that sounds really good. I love books that deal with those kinds of things, especially ones that are written around this time, and E.M. Forster was involved with the Bloomsbury group, which involves Virginia Woolf and stuff like that, and I love Virginia Woolf, as you'll see in a little bit, so I'm really interested in reading books that are by the Bloomsbury group or by people who were around the Bloomsbury group. And the final two that are in this pile are by Charlotte Bronte, and these are some of the last Charlotte Bronte books I've got to read. I also have to read The Professor, which I would like to read at some point this year, but that's not a priority for me at the moment. And the first one I want to read is Shirley. I don't know a lot about this one. It's probably Charlotte Bronte's least popular book, but I'm looking forward to reading it. And some of the characters in here are supposed to be inspired by Charlotte's sisters, Emily and Anne, so I'm looking forward to seeing if there are any parallels there. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this one, but I'm sure I'll be talking about it a lot once I have have read it. And then the other one is Villette, which is supposed to be Charlotte Bronte's best novel. I didn't love Jane Eyre that much. I much prefer Emily and Anne's books to Jane Eyre. I just think they're so much better. But I am looking forward to reading this if it is supposed to be her best one. And it's about a woman called Lucy Snow, again, great name choice there, Charlotte, and her job as a governess in an English boarding school after she's been to Brussels. There are various romances in here that were supposed to be quite controversial for the day, and I really cannot wait to read this one. I'm so excited for it. Jane Austen time now, and I read 3 Jane Austen books last year, really loved them, so I'm looking to read 2 more this year, and they are Mansfield Park, which I don't know too much about, so I want to read it so I can find out what it's about. It's the one that I don't really hear about too much, or I don't hear about as much as the others, so I actually have no clue about this book, so I really want to read it so that I do have a clue, because I love Jane Austen. And then the other one that I would like to read is Emma, and this is about Emma Woodhouse, who is a matchmaker that has sometimes disastrous consequences, and I'm looking forward to reading this. These are a bit bigger than the other Jane Austen books that I've read, so I'd like to read this, and I also have Sense and Sensibility to read. That's not a priority for me at the moment because I know that I will eventually read this, but I know because these are slightly lengthier that I'll keep putting it off until I eventually do read them, so I'm going to make this a priority to read both of these, and I think I'm going to start with Mansfield Park. Then I have these Penguin Modern Classics that I would like to read, and the first one is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. This is inspired by Jane Eyre, and I don't want to give too much away, but the main character in this is Bertha from Jane Eyre. So if you haven't read Jane Eyre, that's not much of a spoiler because you don't know who she is. But this is Jean Rhys's imagining of her story and the events that went on before Jane Eyre started. I'm interested to read this because I'm fascinated by the idea that it is a classic in its own right. Despite it being hugely inspired by Jane Eyre, without Jane Eyre, I don't know if this story would exist. It is still a classic, and people love it as if it was separate from Jane Eyre. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I think about that. Then we have Decline and Fall by Evelyn Waugh, and this is being adapted into a BBC series in the spring. So I would like to read the book before I see that, because I like to read the books before I see things, and it's supposed to be really funny. The BBC series stars Jack Whitehall, who is a comedian in the UK, Eva Longoria and David Suchet, and I think it's going to be really good. But I would like to read the book, and I also want to read some Evelyn Waugh. I also have Brideshead Revisited to read, which I don't know if I'll get to, but I would like to at some point. Then I would like to read Little Birds by Anais Nin, which is about women's sexuality and inner lives, which I think sounds fascinating. I don't have too many hopes for this one. I don't really know what to expect, to be honest, but I think it will be an interesting read even if I don't enjoy it. I think it's just one of those things because she was quite a fascinating lady and I bought it because I've been reading up on her. It's a relatively short collection of different stories and I don't think they follow the main plot or anything. I think they're just individual short stories. I think it'll just be really interesting to read and to see how she writes. Last year I finally read Virginia Woolf. I read Mrs. Dalloway, Orlando and A Room of One's Own. So I want to read some more this year, and these are my 3 choices. The first 2 are To the Lighthouse and The Waves, and I'm not sure which of these I want to read the most because I really can't wait to read them. They're supposed to be her best works, I think. A lot of people talk about these, so I want to read them so I can join in on that conversation too. The Waves follows a group of people as they grow up through childhood and middle age and adulthood, and To the Lighthouse is supposed to be written partly inspired by Virginia Woolf's grief at the death of her parents. I think these 2 are really going to demonstrate Virginia Woolf's amazing stream of consciousness style. I think it's a really fascinating style to read because it's unlike anything else, and I just love Virginia Woolf. She is my favourite. And then the other one I would like to read, this is a shorter one, it is Between the Acts, and this was Virginia Woolf's last novel. She did finish it before she died, but it wasn't edited as extensively as any of her other books, but it was in a state to be published. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I don't know too much about what it's about, but it says it's a novel about life in a country house in whose ground there is to be a pageant, and it's a striking evocation of English experience in the months leading up to the Second World War. And then the final classic on my list is The Wise Virgins by Leonard Woolf, who was Virginia Woolf's husband. So I'd like to read this, and it is supposed to be inspired by their relationship, so I think that'll be really good to read. I've been looking forward to reading this for quite a while, and it is one of the Persephone Books editions, and I want to read Leonard Woolf because again he was in the Bloomsbury group, so I want to read a lot of Bloomsbury fiction and I just think that not enough people talk about this book. So I would love to read this. So those are some of the classics that I would like to read this year. I'm so excited to get started on them. I think I'm going to start with Mansfield Park or Decline and Fall. Those are my plans. So let me know in the comments what you are planning to read in terms of classics this year, because I'd really love to know if there are any books that you think I should add to my list. And I will see you guys soon. Happy reading!